Greetings, dear ladies. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps aside, way aside. And as we've said before, these are the channelings that he's not allowed to attend. And it's not because there are secrets here. For later he will listen to it, as the public will. The reasoning is this. You're celebrating the gender, and he is not of your gender. So in honor of that, we remove him. The voice you hear is male. But with him removed and the consciousness of the male removed, you listen to that which is neither gender. I'm Kryon. And now you know why it is what it is. The meeting is to honor women. And we do. Don't be fooled by the voice. It's Valentine's Day. I said that early. Perhaps not here, but somewhere. And so perhaps it is time to reveal a little bit about men and women in Lemuria. These things perhaps of interest to you, for they are different in the way they are today, or perhaps even that which you might think they would be. And you participated in all of it. I talked to a group of women here who are life givers. Not all, but most. And I'll say it again. You have come here to this place, this room today, through all of these thousands of years and many incarnations as both genders. And again, we say, what are the odds that you were a woman back then and a woman now? And I will tell you 100%. There is no accident that this time around, dear old soul, in this new energy, dear old soul, you came in yet again as a female. Your Akash will serve you well to remember that which was Lemurian, for you were the life givers as well as the spirit givers. You were the shamans of the village. You were the ones who held the torch. And here you are again. It serves you to know this. It helps you to feel the self-worth of who you are, who you've been, and how you can help the planet today in the same way you did before. Through the sisterhood, you remember the pieces and the parts that you are, especially allying to a time in Lemuria. What are the odds you were in Lemuria at some point in time through the thousands of years? What are the odds? 100%. Synchronicity brings you to this place. There are men who wish they could sit here because they remember it differently. I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about relationships, about that which perhaps we've never spoken of before that would be of interest to you. What was life back there? Beyond what we've talked about, the sacred circles of the women, that which you did for the men, that which you did for the little continent called Lemuria. If you've listened to the channels, you know your history. You know who you were. You knew that the men counted on this. They wanted this from you. This was natural. It is natural for the giver of life on this planet to be the one that is connected first to the creative source. And you were. So what about men and women? Would you like to know about marriage? There wasn't any. There was ceremony, different than you might imagine, and everyone was involved. You didn't have a society that went home to huts. It was different. A very beginning, immature consciousness, society-wise, was Lemuria. Later on, it became more sophisticated, but at first, it was more communal. And what I mean by that, you lived in times and places together. You only took one husband at a time, but you lived many together. It wasn't isolated or separated as it is today, where you go to a place and shut the door. Marriage was sacred. It was not arranged. You had choice. All women had choice. The interesting thing about it is the woman got first choice. The sad thing about it, I'm about to tell you, men could only get married after 50. The lifespan of all those in Lemuria was far greater than it is now. It is only common sense. You have an isolated society, a mini continent, and you do not have the diseases of the mainland that came from the mainland. You do not have visitors from the mainland. It was almost like an encapsulated society where you were able to grow your own medicinal cures for many things that ailed you. The DNA was still purer than it is now. You lived a long life. You lived healthy lives as well. One of the reasons is because everything you ate was super fresh. Most of the things that you ate, 90% or more, came from the ocean. Your husbands and their families and all the men fished. This is what they did. We've told you before, part of your job, dear women, in the sacred circles that you were, besides birthing almost every month someone in a circle, part of your job was to bless the catch. You told the men very early in the morning, in another ceremony, where to find the fish that day. Do you see how they've counted on you? How did you know these things? And I'll say to you that this is about, again, potentials. It's about wisdom. It's about knowing things that others may not know. It's about connection to the other side of the veil. Can you see the value you were to all the society? Men could only get married after 50. There was a reverence of age. Women could get married as soon as they were able to conceive. Men could only get married after 50. Now, this may seem odd to you. There was a system there. It wasn't a calendar system at all. It had to do more about the stars. It had to do with the weather, a lot about the weather, about the winds, how they shifted, when you did certain kinds of things. There were ceremonies, times of getting married. Although there were no marriages, there was simply ceremony, one with another. I told you the women had choice. When the men were over 50, they were chosen by the women. They did not choose. The women did. By the way, this is an honor. And a guy over 50, he didn't much care. For he got a young wife. Then the interesting thing happened. If this gentleman outlived her, and almost always he did, the wife then got the choice of which brother to go to next. So almost all women eventually had at least 2 husbands in lineage, because one would eventually pass on. If that brother died, then the woman was a widow. And she could choose again another 50-year-old, if she wished to. Most didn't. But it's an interesting culture and the way it worked and why it worked. They all had a society and rules just like now. Men and women had some of the same problems, just like now. Humans are humans. But I want to tell you about something. I want to tell you about a special, let's call it, time of year. Didn't last more than 3 days. But once a year, when the wind blew a certain way, there was another kind of an honoring. It's the closest thing you'll ever get to Valentine's Day. You might be interested to know that the work was shared in an interesting way that you didn't know, we didn't tell you. You just assume. Because the women stay home, they do domestic things, they cook the meals, they care for the children. And in this particular society, they also were the shamans. You were busy. But that's not necessarily what you did. First of all, it would have been unconscionable for a woman to cook the fish that the men caught. Men cooked the fish. Doesn't that make sense? They go out, they fish, they catch it, they say hello. The fish dies in their hand, and they cook it. They actually have a ceremony for that. All of the men cooked the fish. And by the way, it was communal cooking. Not everybody caught the fish they wanted to. And so they mixed it up. Everyone gained that food from the other. Does that make sense? Women did not cook. But the women did harvest crops on the island. The tropics were wonderful for growing many kinds of things. So instead of cooking, you were out harvesting and caring for the children. We all did this, dear ones. Very Lemurian. Women didn't cook. Do you like it so far? Now, this special time of year. It's hard to describe a society without a clock. Not really. You felt it. You knew what to do. The cycles were the cycles. The cycles of birth are the cycles. That never changed. But when it came to certain kinds of celebrations, it really was Gaia who dictated when it was time. There was a 3-day celebration, a celebration of women. The men loved it. They got to dress up. They put on special colors. Don't laugh. The colors were women's colors. They dressed as women. It was an honor for the women for 3 days. And what they did was to swap roles for 3 days with the children. They cared for the kids. Valentine's Day was a time when they said thank you to the women, took the burden of the children, and they still cooked. Imagine. It was an honor. A senior woman was revered. This is the one with usually the most grandchildren. They sat in front. Anytime there was ceremony, they sat in front. The senior women were seen almost as gods because they had been in the Lemurian Sisterhood the longest, because they had communicated with spirit and guided the men so long to the fish. They were the ones to help survival of those civilization for so long, and they got to sit in front. You might say, well, where did the tribal elders sit? In front. Because those were the tribal elders. Did I tell you that? The senior women. The men loved it. For 3 days, they dressed as you did in your colors. Cared for the children as a way of saying, we love our women. That's who you are. That's Valentine's Day, Lemurian style. That's enough for now.